wanted to just talk a little bit about Colorado State. Obviously, that's Michigan's opening game. Colorado State will be traveling to the Big House, and I think if you just took a look at the record the way that I did, you would think that they're 3-9, they had an awful season, so on and so forth. But when I started taking a look at some of those box scores, I mean, they had I think they played Iowa, lost
Mhm.
by 10 points, on the road. They lost to Hawaii by 5, so some pretty close games within there. So do you feel like Colorado State is that 3-9 can be misleading and they're kind of on the way up, or is it they're a bit concerned about how this next season's going to be? Like, where do you feel like they would be in their feeling of this next season?
Well, first, I'm going to recap what the 2021 season was because that was just a roller coaster of a season for Colorado State. They came out, they got punched in the gut by an FCS team in South Dakota State, a good FCS team, but it's unacceptable to lose in Fort Collins by 19 points to South Dakota State. And then the next week, they played another team that got punched in the gut by an FCS team in Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt came off that loss to ETSU, and Colorado State lost that game in Fort Collins on a game-winning field goal by the Commodores. So an 0-2 start, and Colorado State's looking like one of the 5 worst teams in the country. And then they have a really impressive 4-game stretch that probably couldn't have gone better in late September and mid-October, where they beat Toledo in one of the weirdest games of the season, where I think they went 11 of 28 passing that game, and their only touchdown was a punt return touchdown. They had 5 field goals, and they just stifled Toledo's offense and won 22-6. Huge upset. Toledo usually blows a game like that every single year where they're considerable favorites. But then Colorado State continues that momentum in Kinnick next week, and they come within 10 points of Iowa. They led at halftime in that game. They were the first team to really expose Iowa's offense last year. It was a ton of backfield pressure. Colorado State finished top 10 in sacks per game last year. And Scott Patchen, their top defensive end, who is All Mountain West honors, just signed a deal with the Colts as an undrafted free agent. So they'll need to reload some of that pass rush this year. But their pass rush looked good against Iowa last year. And then they blow out San Jose State, New Mexico. So they're 3-3. It looks like a team that's really improving around midseason. And then disaster strikes on a Friday night in Logan against Utah State, where I think they had the worst clock management I saw of any team last season, where they had time to spike it, and they were lining up for a game-winning field goal on that Friday night game. And instead of spiking it, they just rushed out the field goal unit and tried to attempt a field goal, just rushed with the clock going down instead of spiking the ball, and they shanked it just because they weren't prepared. In that loss, just it just bled into one loss and then to another loss. The next week, they blow a big lead to Boise State at halftime, and then they just get worse and worse as the season progresses, and it ends in a 52-10 loss to Nevada. Now, the 2022 team is completely different than this 2021 team, because after that loss to Nevada, Nevada coach Jay Norvell, after beating Colorado State 52-10, goes to Colorado State, goes across the conference, switches jobs, and now this entire team is different because this is like USC in terms of the transfer portal. This team is just completely transfers all across the board starting. A lot of them are from Nevada too. So we should expect a lot of different things from this Colorado State team because the 2021 team, it's not here anymore. I'd say there's about as many maybe more transfers that are projected starters this year than starters from last year. That's how different Colorado State's going to look for 2022. So they're a wild card team, new coach, a lot of transfers. So I really don't know how this game's going to go to start. I mean, obviously, you'd think that Michigan would blow them out. Michigan beat a few good teams in non-conference play last year handily, like Western Michigan and Northern Illinois. That's what I would expect to happen. But Colorado State is a transformed team.
Nice. It'll be interesting. I think Michigan is in a different spot than they've been recently under Jim Harbaugh. Like they have always had success, but it's never been to the level that they've had last season. So now the challenge is going to be for Jim Harbaugh and the captains and the team leaders to be able to sustain that. And we talked last week about it, but just being the hunted, that's it's a very different experience versus being the hunter. So now, Michigan will have that target on their backs. And I think, so to speak, they've always had that just because of, the Michigan allure, just such a big brand and program, but I think it'll be to a different level this year of, you're the returning Big Ten, defending Big Ten champions, and you made it to the college football playoff. I mean, every team and every player is gonna want to have their big game against Michigan. So it'll be a new experience for them to be able to just navigate that as a team, and to just kind of be in uncharted territory, so to speak.
Mhm. And I'm really excited to watch the return of Ronnie Bell to the lineup this year for Michigan because he got hurt on that spectacular catch against Western Michigan. I think he basically did two plays last year. He had a great punt return and a spectacular touchdown catch. And then you want to see more, and then he's out for the season. So I think just the addition of Ronnie Bell to that Michigan receiving core, where you already have Cornelius returning and you have Eric All at tight end, I really like this Michigan receiving core. And I think this is the best I felt about it since probably when they had Mario Manningham and Adrian Arrington.
Yeah, they definitely have the potential to be a really good group, like really, really good group. And yeah, I think Ronnie Bell is going to be, I think, the glue for that receiving core to make sure that, he's going to be the star. I think he's going to be the constant, the consistent, performer week in and week out. He's going to be that guy you can count on for 8 to 10 catches, maybe 12 some weeks. Just a really explosive player, someone who can really draw a lot of attention. Whereas I think that'll help guys like Cornelius to really, to be singled up a little more, get a little less attention. Where Ronnie, I think, will be able to take a lot of that on. But I still go back because even kind of the first couple games of the season last year, I was one who wanted them to throw the ball more. I felt like they were playing these teams where the margin of error is really big. So let's make sure we get our quarterback set and get him a lot of reps, a lot of experience. And Josh Gaddis and Jim Harbaugh were having none of that, and I was wrong because you still were. Michigan was able to beat Ohio State and things like that. So my thought is going to be that we're probably not going to see a lot of Ronnie Bell and Cornelius Johnson in this game. I think we're going to see Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. I think it's going to be a pretty run heavy game plan, just because that's what Jim Harbaugh. That's just been his DNA and in what his track record has been here at Michigan, and even with San Francisco as well.